Hello and welcome to a new episode in the Writing Thoughts series. In this episode, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on what it's like to write for yourself versus writing for an audience. Now these are two types of writers that we're all pretty familiar with at this point, because both have their pros and cons, but which one are you better suited for? As always, you can read this blog post on my website, thepensedsleuth.com. There's a link to that in the description below, as well as a link to my writing workshop if you're looking to take your writing skills to the next level. If you want to check out my teaching methods first, there's also a link to a free writing course. With that said, let's begin and get straight into the topic. Most beginner writers are writing for themselves. Usually, they are writing a story that has been on their mind, either inspired by some childhood novel or movie, or it is a story they have experienced. Whichever way it may be, they have certain expectations of their novel and they want to fulfill those expectations. For some writers, however, meeting their own expectations is incredibly difficult. It's hard to capture a concept, a feeling that one is so passionate about. It's a skill that comes with time but also with practice. It might take several rewrites, but eventually a writer will create something they can be proud of. On the other side of the spectrum, we have writers who design and write their novels in order to please a specific audience, not themselves. These writers create a novel based on popular trends, which requires research and more practical understanding of how a novel should be structured. It's no surprise that most writers who write for an audience are experienced authors who understand the elements that make up a good novel. First-time writers will rarely jump straight into the business side of writing before they even tackle the skill set required to write a unique and enjoyable story. However they started writing, both writers have their own hurdles and perks. Writing for yourself means greater job satisfaction. You choose your style and story. However, you might face high expectations, and your style or story might not appeal to a broad market. Those that write for themselves often take longer to write a novel, and most never finish writing their book. Writing for an audience means more focus on marketing and researching the different storytelling techniques that work well for readers. It means pleasing agents and publishers to have your book reach more people. It means starting another book soon after you finish the first. These writers usually start with a burst of first-time readers, but their quality will most likely come from their consistency in writing. The impact the novel has largely depends on luck and their natural talent to make those standard storytelling practices feel more unique. As for the monetary reward, both are on equal footing if they go through publishers or self-publishing. However, a proficient writer who targets an audience might have the edge in the number of releases they make compared to a passionate writer who will most likely not release a novel so often. So here are my thoughts on the subject. The dream of every writer is to be a passionate writer who writes the stories they want to write. The entrepreneurial sorts are few, and even they will find the urge to continue lacking when they see the difficulties that come with being a writer. However, there is no denying that a writer with a better understanding of the market will have an edge. Of course, when coupled with enough fans, a writer who targets their audiences can make a big splash. It is for this reason I believe so many authors who make it big take advantage of the momentum they created and start writing novels that target specific audiences. Being a well-known writer for something you're passionate about is great, but with a keen business-oriented mind, one can quickly turn themselves to write novels and series for an audience rather than for themselves. It's an excellent practice, and most established writers would leap at the opportunity to create a novel that is guaranteed instant support in the beginning. Writing is a career that is best suited for those with creative minds and a keen business sense. Any creative career is. You can craft the best story you can imagine, but without a thorough understanding of your audience and marketing, you'll struggle to write a novel, not to mention sell it effectively and efficiently. So, how should all this information affect you as a writer? Well, you can't learn to be the best at either overnight. You shouldn't work on selling a book before you even write the first chapter either. I think there is room to learn in both areas, but focus on the first few steps. Plan your novel, write your novel, and keep working at it until you feel you have something you are happy with. I think it's important to understand for every beginner writer that the chances of success are always going to be stacked against you. For every well-known author out there, there's at least 1,000 whose book will never be read and their name never known. With that in mind, I do encourage people to care about both sides of being a writer, the creative and the business side, but to focus on the creative side first, because you can't start planning on how to sell a product until you have it in your hands. Of course, these are just some of my thoughts on the subject. Only you can decide the kind of writer you want to be. And I'd also like to hear your thoughts on this subject as well. Do you think one type of writer is better than the other, and why do you think so? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for listening, and as always, good day, good night, and happy writing.